Hello, people. Just a quick one. This is just a spontaneous kind of insight I had a second ago, learning through trial and error. And basically, I think like the most important thing that I've come to conclude on in the whole scene of personal development, spirituality, psychedelics, and just wisdom and fucking scriptures and the whole thing, I don't know, just in general, like basically to distill it without being long, is I think the core thing is it's really your internal state. What do I mean by that? Basically, yeah, actually, this is interesting. Blah, 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 sorry. Earlier, I was talking with the Conscious Rapper community group chat. I was speaking with Flowmatic, Bespoke, MC Words, Michael DeSalza, and we were talking, I think, about basically Leo Gura of Actualized that August spoke about this as well, and it's like getting frustrated, like, or for example, Illuminati Congo has a lyric, resistance and judgment is the root of suffering. We brought up the example, I think Leo Gura said on his video, understanding gaslighting, is that like, imagine you can have like someone in a flat above you, and they're like fat as fuck and they keep jumping around or some shit or playing loud music, or like there's constantly like bangs coming through the ceiling like randomly, right? I think the way that Leo said it is it would like jitter his nervous system, like, you know, that would piss you off if they kept banging upstairs. And you can basically kind of get gaslit by this like Buddhist awakening paradigm of more like Alan Watts or Ram Dass. You don't need to be familiar with them inherently, but it's like basically what you'll hear in spiritual circles and teachings and scriptures, etc. I know Mr. Nature kind of says this, and his Mrs. Miss Sunshine as well, to an extent. People like Yogananda, Ramana Maharshi, to an extent, Inspector Veg said it to me recently when I had a few hard days at work and I wanted to blame the environment, just like blaming the ceiling, like for pissing you off, like, oh, that loud noise is pissing me off, man, or my job's pissing me off. You kind of like, you basically are a victim almost to the external world, the so-called external world, and the scriptures and the teachings and the spiritual talk would basically say, just like, almost, it can sound like a form of gaslighting, like almost like your external problems aren't valid because it's your mind clinging. Resistance and judgment is the root of suffering. So it's almost like, you know, people can say if you're more into more conscious music and you're aware of the brainwashing in like the SoundCloud rapper wave, etc., that's kind of like brainwashed the whole culture with this neurolinguistic programming, because everyone listens to the radio and everyone who gets played on the radio is thick for the most part, so everyone like subconsciously downloads like a thick paradigm. So when you're at work or you're in a car or someone and they have the radio on, right, and you're listening to this tune, and people can tend to resist it almost. Like, that's an example that I've had in the past. And that is probably an example where like you best just get over it. Stop resisting the music. There is higher levels of development where you can like see how it's not as black and white as you're making out to be, and you can kind of see the love in more things as you grow. But basically, yeah. So if you're familiar with this kind of form of gaslighting from like the Buddhist and spiritual communities, of like basically where you can't blame the government, the system, the external world, your job, or your outside situation, you can get kind of gaslit and just basically told that, oh, it's just clinging to the mind, man, just let go, man. Like, even being told to be grateful is can almost feel it's it's weird, not offensive, because like I think an insight from Leo of Actualized and myself is that, yeah, I've verified that your willingness to get like your vulnerability to getting offended is directly correlated with like your level of consciousness, kind of. But then to an extent, say like Leo again of Actualized has a video on, he has like understanding happiness, and that one kind of dovetails with the gaslighting as well. I think he brings it up, and in that one he says like, yeah, he brings up an example, and he's like, if you have parents that limit you when you're young, like that's a recipe for not happiness. So you have to get out of that situation. He says, don't let people gaslight you. Like, don't get confused with these Buddhist and spiritual teachings. Like, yeah, the kingdom of heaven is within. That's like what the Bible says for the most part, or and the kingdom of heaven is within. But also, yeah, the kingdom of heaven is within. I think that is ultimately the truth. But basically, yeah, if you have like a shit family circumstance and you're like, you know, if you're in the gulag, the way that Leo says it, it's like a very small fraction of people can like basically enlighten their way out of their problems. Like Ramana Maharshi, I believe he just sat in like a cave. Didn't he just basically decay eventually because of his enlightenment in a way? Like he just like meditated until he just like died. I don't know how true that is, but apparently he got eaten by like bugs and rats and shit. I don't know if that's true. But the reason I bring this up, right? So yeah, Leo says like, you know, if you have like limiting parents or something, like then go and sort out that problem by all means. Don't just like bliss out and meditate about it. But basically, that the reason I bring up that whole bit, and then at the start I said the key is your internal state. What do I mean by that? Now this is the meat of it. It's basically everything that I just said is relevant, and you'll see why. It's because like it can almost create this kind of confusion of like personal development versus awakening, nearly. Like strive for the future and strive to solve your problems, basically. But also, like Alan Watts would say, if you can't find it here, you can't find it anywhere. It's always here now. And to someone in the gulag, or to someone who can't pay their rent, or to someone who's like on a building site in the cold and they can't even feel their hands because it's so fucking cold, and then you literally have to breathe in dust and shit, and like you're getting bullied by other blokes on the building site. To hear Alan Watts go, it's just here, man. Or like Inspector Veg said to me, when you're skint, there is no Tao. And the Tao is the infinite flow. And these spiritual teachers like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, and Yogananda, and Ramana Maharshi, they're like, just let go, man. Like, go with the Tao. And just flow with the rest of reality. Like, give up. And like, let the universe do it, kind of, to an extent. That's not exactly what they say, to be honest. That's not what the scriptures say. That's a very black and white interpretation. There's no faith without works. Check out, I don't know why I said that so weirdly. Check out a song by Illuminati Congo called Faith Without Works. That's what you need to check, bro. But yeah, you can kind of you can get into this confusion where like you don't know what to believe, kind of, and you shouldn't really believe anything. You should kind of, well, verify it for your direct experience. But regardless, the solution to this, what I was saying, basically, to fucking get to the meat of the topic, I'm sorry I ran, but it is relevant. So basically, what do I mean by the most important thing and the only thing you really got to give a fuck about is your internal state? What do I mean? That is a very mundane and dead word I could have chose. What I mean is, well, these two words that I'm about to give you, I held off for using them for a long time because they sounded woo-woo and hippie. But if you do more psychedelics, more meditation, more awakening, and just mature, frequency and vibration, or vibrational frequency, right? I used to hear people say that, and then I'd like cut them off almost, as if they didn't have an intellectual integrity once I heard them talk about that hippy-dippy stuff. But you just got to do more psychedelics, basically, and more breath work. But basically, not just your vibration. What I'm talking is basically what I've found with me and kind of like depressive episodes potentially is you almost get locked into this rut where like you know that you can meditate your way out of it, or you know you can like mindfully be gratitude and get out of the rut. It's important to feel pain often though. If you are hurting, don't resist. Like sometimes it's alright to let yourself get run down energetically a bit, because I feel like there's almost feels something nice to just like sitting into the misery. I'm not saying you have to be miserable in order for this video to be valid, but what I'm saying is basically, what do I mean by your internal state, right? You can be like kind of in a miserable mood for a minute, in a rut, which I'm sure you have been, or you can relate potentially to having been in some form of a rut in the past, or maybe now. And then you can, for example, I like stumbled onto some motivational video earlier today, and it like it sparked something in me that changed my internal state. So I'm not simply talking about frequency and vibration, because that sounds very stagnant. I'm talking like you have to, it's like a holistic, like, work your energy up kind of. It's hard to explain. For me, actually, I smoked a little bit of weed and my internal state is brilliant again, because I'm confident weed is medicine for a lot of people. And my state was not brilliant before I had weed, and I was just thinking quite a bit the whole time that I just wanted weed, not to get caught in desire, because you don't need anything, is what spiritual teachings would say to an extent. But then again, you are a human, survival is written into your DNA, and, you know, as much as you're not the body, you know, you also are the body. So, like, that's the thing about spiritual teachings, is, like, to an extent, you do have to adopt the opposite paradigm of, like, how most of culture sees it. Like, you know, you're not the body and there's no ego, but also, like, there is. Not really, sure, but, you know, you are, to an extent, a being versus the world, but you're also not, if you've experienced some of them higher planes of, like, non-duality and solipsism, potentially, or something of that nature. I'm not saying anything about absolute truth right now. But even Ram Dass, Leo Goa both speak of the unity solipsism plane, kind of. But yeah, the key is to basically just change your internal state, yeah. And to an extent, you are a victim to the external world. This has been important for me to understand, and this is the traction towards conspiracy theories for a lot of people, potentially. It's like, to an extent, it's not your fault. The medical industry would like to prescribe you a pill and tell you that you're the problem for your symptoms, but you are a symptom of your environment, like epigenetics and Bruce Lipton, search those, and Mr. Traumatic Off Grid, check out that song by him. Yeah, like, I like to let people know, especially if they're dealing with depression, potentially. Check out my last video recently, is called Depression Cure Equals Spiritual Awakening? ? And that, I speak on, yeah, don't let them, like, prescribe you medication in the medical industry, because the system that is the problem, that the people are a victim to, is the same system that is prescribing the medication. It's kind of like this strange loopy thing, similar to, like, how the fluoride in the water makes you thick, and when you're thick, you think that the fluoride in the water is okay because you've already been drinking it. So, but regardless of that, is yeah, basically, culture would like to tell you that you're the problem, but you're actually a symptom of culture. And then you're going to culture for help, but culture is what's broken. And yes, it is you, and ultimately culture is a manifestation of the people within it, kind of. Unless, you know, I'm very open at this point to that, like, half of the humans on the planet, potentially, or, like, maybe not half, but I'm very open to, like, I know it sounds radical, but again, you just got to do more psychedelics, that, like, half the humans aren't even actual humans, and, like, some humans are, like, literally, like, nanotech, or, like, reptilians or some shit. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really understand, like, how the fuck, like, so I'm only saying this because I've seen, like, visions of gods coming out of the sky. I've been to, like, the astral planes. I've literally met a girl who was, like, she was, like, not a girl, bro. I don't know. I've rehashed that story a lot. I was on loads of mushrooms and she just literally was, like, a fucking robot or some shit, bro. And she knew that I could see her. It was, like, literally they live. And I'm not, like, these things happen to me. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but it still happened to me. And I took, like, an outlandish dose of mushrooms, so to an extent, you know. Anyway, yeah, your internal state. I feel like maybe I'm not tying loose ends. But yeah, it's if you're in a rut or in a mood, basically, you just have to, like, get out of that with your mind. You don't have to, like, you can feel it for a minute, just don't get mired in it. Or not with your mind, like relinquish your mind and be in no mind. But, like, basically, like, how is it, like, bipolar, right? Bipolar is the best thing. Like, how is it that you can flip that switch like that? Or obviously it's not with your will, but I've had symptoms of bipolar for a while. for about 2 years, mainly since my psychedelic use started. Um, not always, but in general, yeah, or like basically not just 2 years actually. Really, it's been for as long as I've had like my. I did have depression and things when I was about 15 onwards, and I'm not saying you have to for this video to be valid. But if you're familiar with bipolar, and I'm sure you have mood fluctuations, right? Or potentially correlated would be hormone fluctuations or nutrition fluctuations, etc., or dietary fluctuations. And it's all interconnected. But like, how is it that bipolar can like, you can go from being like deeply depressed and bedbound to like hyper motivated? And that's what I feel like has just happened to me almost. Like I was down. Yeah, it was pretty bad to be fair. I don't know how it gets so bad. It's like I don't even have control. That's the thing actually. Wake up. That's the main thing. I think Leo Gura said on his video, "What is Islam?" that they pray 4 times a day, I believe. And that is to keep themselves in check, to keep waking themselves up all day. Don't let it slip. So the main danger, I'm telling you, is your internal vibration, your internal state, your frequency, your state of mind, your state of motivation, your masculine or feminine energy, whatever you're in, your like literally how like your energy, master your awareness. That is the key. And sometimes you might fall off and you can get almost locked into suffering where like, yeah, you know that you can like do some breath work to get out of it, but like you almost are like addicted to the suffering in the same way how you get like stuck on your phone. You get stuck to like negative rumination and like you don't want to leave it almost because sometimes it feels good to like be a victim and be an ego and just play that game for a second. But the biggest danger is falling asleep. That's what I'm telling you. That's the main message. So regardless of if you're happy, sad, depressed, sedated, whatever the fuck you may be, see Leo Gura's video, everything is state of consciousness. But the biggest danger is unconsciousness and falling asleep. And falling asleep is just being adrift and being unconscious. The biggest danger is unconscious. See a song by Mr. Traumatic called Mindfulness. Because for me, potentially, sometimes there could be a tendency where it's like I can fall asleep for weeks at a time, nearly. That's not really how, like, not literally, but like, you know how most of culture is asleep and is NPCs, or, which is a metaphor for video games, they have non-player characters. Most people are basically like not there, because a lot of people, like, I got this job, and my colleagues just talk about how they just wake up and take loads of pills and yeah, like, and they just like, they all laugh about how they're gonna die soon, and it's so normal. That's what kills me. I might have criticisms of myself, but I'm telling you, we're about to watch history do a fucking 180, and most of the culture and most people are fucked. So I might be outlandish, I might not be perfect, but most people, literally, like half this population, literally is fucked in so many ways. And so am I to an extent, but yeah. So don't be too hard on yourself, because at least you're not Kensington Avenue. Search Kensington Avenue, I dare you. Alright, I'm gonna go. Wake the fuck up. That's the main thing, but also to an extent, you know, you were born into a culture and country and environment where medicine is illegal. Nature is illegal. And you was born into this. So as much as it, you know, don't point at the world and don't be a victim, like the victim mindset is the one thing holding you back from success. Yeah, alright, fair, like, you are correct, but also, like, I agree, like, it's best not to be a victim, and but it's just like, also, like, you are a victim, like, okay, maybe you're not, maybe on a metaphysical level you're actually not, like, because you are dreaming everything, or in a nature of reality kind of level, like a higher level, like in terms of like consciousness and awakening, and if reality is a dream or if it's material, and when you take into account law of attraction, maybe like you're literally manifesting it in terms of like the whole dream is happening within the mind of God, and that's like mirroring your frequency or your attitude or some shit, to the extent where you are literally manifesting Babylon and a corrupt government. If you only changed your internal state, then New Earth would manifest. And I think to a large extent that is very true. But yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like people can almost, like, being told to be grateful is almost a form of gaslighting. I know that sounds shit. That's not true, really, exactly. But it's all, like, if you feel like life isn't happening for you and it's happening to you, then you feel like you're asking, like, be grateful. But you're like, I didn't even ask to be alive, bro. But maybe you did. Maybe you're tricking yourself, because there's, like, ego, and then there's the real self, or something like that. You know. How do you know that you didn't choose this experience before you came to it? You know, like, reality is pretty deep when you think about it. But the way it seems, almost, to the ego is like you just like incarnate on a whim, and you didn't ask for it, and like you just kind of like appear for no apparent reason, and like your past is kind of a daze because you were just a baby and you don't really form memories back then, apparently. Or perhaps you're imagining this whole thing, which I would say is my highest understanding of reality, is that everything is pure imagination and there's no time. It's just like literally God. I don't know, it's way too deep, bro. That's some psychedelic territory. But like, it seems like you just kind of like appear and you didn't ask for it, in a way. And then, you know, if that's the case to an extent, you know, you just get, like, to be a victim. I have this song, it's like a demo, 4444. And it goes, how does it go? Born on a whim in a toxic culture, now they're sending us in the indoctrinator, like the food pyramid was made for paper. And that's what I mean. It's just like, to be a victim is like, oh, I was just born into this family, I didn't ask for this, and then like they're feeding me poison, because a lot of people are born into houses of like poor health. So when you see that, like Inspector Veg said he was horrified when he found out what his parents were feeding him for the first 20 years. So yeah, it's like you just kind of like appear in this matrix, and then you're just like, just get fed this shit, and it seems like you don't have any say into your incarnation. But who's to say that you didn't choose your incarnation to learn deep lessons, potentially, or to learn how to love, or I don't know. I feel like the universe wouldn't rig itself. Like, it wouldn't do it if it wasn't worth it. Then again, maybe only you can make it worth it. But who really are you? I don't know. Look, there's too many levels. I'm gonna go now. I said the main point. Basically, wake up. That is the main goal. In terms of, yeah, even if you have to hustle through life and like be productive and shit, which I'm sure is the case. Like, say if everything's inevitable and everything's already written in like some secret script, metaphysical script behind the scene, maybe that script entails you realizing self-love, therefore gaining the ability to actually be a functional human being. So like, it's not like you just have to discipline yourself inherently, like it is. My phone's going to run out of storage. But also, maybe it's in a much more broader, bigger sense where, like, you know, you don't have to force yourself, because you will learn in natural time. I don't know. I'm going to go anyway. I love you.